Today's reading is about what to expect for the next year, depending on what it is exactly that you feel that you might be lacking whenever it comes to the big shifts and changes happening in the world. I have focus. I focus on what is working. This is for group 1. I focus on what is working. So if you are having difficulty focusing on one specific task and you feel that your brain is just kind of like all over the place, this might be the deck for you. The other card I have here is adapt. My instincts keep me adaptable in the face of any obstacle. So this is for people who feel like you're struggling to adapt. You feel like every time that something happens, you just feel completely devastated and you don't really know how to move forward. So these are the 2 options we have here. So take a second and figure out which pile is being drawn more to you and which pile you're more drawn to. And you can skip ahead to that part if you want. I just want to take a second to say, please subscribe or leave a comment, give me a like, and so I can continue to make these videos. Okay, so for group 1, I focus on what is working. That's our main card here. I wrote some notes. We can choose a shift and uplift our perspective, focus on what is working, stop fixating on imperfections, hold yourself accountable for your thoughts, and go for progress, not perfection. So a lot of you guys are getting kind of hung up on wanting things to be perfect. Whenever I first drew that card and I was first reading about it, I was getting this perspective that we're actually seeing with like leaders in general with what's going on is this idea that the leaders need to be perfect. I'm not saying that they can't be criticized, but I think that a lot of what we kind of see people doing is expecting people to not misspeak and to not make mistakes and to expect everybody to play the same role. You know, they see a certain leader and they want everybody to behave that way. And that's just not the way things work. In a community, everybody can't be the leader, right? And it ends up becoming really self-centered and selfish to expect that. You know, I saw something earlier that somebody said that a lot of people don't want to do the small things. They don't want to help in the small ways. Everybody wants to be the star of the movement. And so consider for yourself like what it is that you're expecting from yourself and why you might feel like you're falling short and what might be sort of holding you back from continuing to pursue this like new aspect of what it is that you want to do. I have 10 of Wands here. Fatigue, overload. So this is a representation of how much we're being overworked and you're feeling it very much as well. There's just like way too much to carry. And sometimes it can be a little, we literally have the word oppression on here, Lord of oppression. So a lot of people feel like they're running in circles, and that's what's making it hard to focus, is because our focus is being like diverted and divided into a lot of different areas. This also comes with the aspect of like how people are judging one another. We're seeing a lot of division in our community in general. So I think that's also like fragmenting like where you feel like your focus should be. I have 5 of Pentacles here. Poverty and struggles, hardship. So the 5 of Pentacles to me is usually like, you know, you can see they're out in the storm together. So whenever we consider that, it's, to me, 5 of Pentacles is almost like a warning to find your community, and also a reminder that maybe it's time to look around at the people around you and see if they are actually people who are benefiting your life. And if they're people that you feel you can weather the storm with. If the answer is no, then you need to start building a community. I'm immediately getting a message in my head for people who have, who are trying to get out of a cultish mindset or a cultish group. Maybe you've already escaped this group. Maybe you're considering leaving. Maybe you're in this weird transition period where you're leaving, and this is your sign that that is the right thing to do, because what you really need is community building and having this sort of aspect where people have these false idols that they give their life up to, and they adjust their morals depending on what the idol is saying. Then you're not protected, because these people will not protect you. They'll abandon you and they'll hurt you and they'll harm you, all in the name of this false idol. So this is your sign that you are making the right decision. I have 7 of Pentacles here. And this is telling us to continue to lay down the groundwork and to plant the seeds for the future. and focus really on what type of community it is that you want, going forward. What type of people do you want to surround yourself with? I think a lot of people feel a little bit hopeless because they're so used to a capitalistic society that the idea of not having money to continue to participate in the capitalist society freaks them out. And I'm not saying that these people are rich either. You might be someone who has always lived low income and gone paycheck to paycheck, but you've never actually explored the idea of going to your community for things. There are lots of people who live paycheck to paycheck, but they've never been to a food bank. You know what I mean? And they've never been to a food drive. And that's not to say that you have to go to those things. I think most people feel like they don't deserve that stuff. But if you do stop by at a food bank or a food drive, you'll find that a lot of the food doesn't get taken. If you want to wait for everybody else who really needs the food to go through first, and you come at the end of the day or at the end of the food drive, there's still going to be plenty of food left. And that's symbolic of how much people think that they don't deserve help from their community, is that there's this opportunity to, and I'm not saying that, I think people are also afraid of the idea of like getting something for free, but if no one takes that food, it goes bad. You know what I mean? So it's about preserving the food as well. It's not about like just taking something for free or just taking a handout. It's like, what do we do with those resources whenever people aren't able to take them and people aren't able to consume them? This is also a message to myself too. I tell myself all the time that I need to stop by the food bank or the food drive at the end of the day to see what's left, because it's about preservation and it's about not letting the food go to waste because people feel too proud or people worry that they're taking that from someone else or something. It's just going to get thrown away if no one takes it. So that's kind of an example of how there's community efforts all around you that are there to benefit you and other people, and people don't take that chance. They are very individualistic with their thinking to the point where it isolates them completely from their community. So this is for you to focus on, where can I find this community? Where can I make these connections with people? Where can I weather the storm? I don't need to do it all on my own, Okay. We have 4 of Wands here. Stability and celebration. This is another sign to match up with the people in your community and to celebrate the little wins. Whenever I have here, stop fixating on imperfections and go for progress, not perfection. This is another reminder to celebrate how far you've come, and the little bit of stability that you have had, you know what I mean? And then also to go into kind of embracing your community a little bit more, like, basically what I'm saying. So the last card I have here, it's 6 of Cups. Sharing, peace, nostalgia. I have a lot of different thoughts going through my mind with with that card in particular. And it has to do with the fact that whenever we're looking at engaging in a community, we're also looking at being able to have those different perspectives. If we have a range of people in our community that are older people who have nostalgia and have wisdom and have knowledge, even if this older person might not be educated in a traditional sense, they always have something to share from their experience. I love talking to older people and just hearing like just their basic day-to-day lives. There are things that we didn't have to do, even though now we're kind of like shifting into this underdeveloped society. And I hope that this is not long term, but I mean, it's just the realism of what we're facing. But whenever you talk to them about these huge aspects, these huge changes and all these different things that have happened, it can make you feel inspired for the future, because it's like, yes, let's hold on to that. Let's continue to do that. And that's what your focus needs to be, is a little bit more on community and sharing. And the nostalgia aspect of like, okay, like how they say the American dream is dead, right? Go back to like what it was that we wanted, just those basic things that a lot of people have given up on, especially millennials, Gen Z, that's a different thing all on its own. I'll let Gen Z speak for themselves. But as in like this, like a little bit more like a nihilistic approach to life, and a little bit on like each side, it's very like restrictive in a different way that millennials weren't. Millennials were very much like, let's open perspectives a little bit more. And realizing too that eventually that what we were promised is not what we're receiving, right? I'm on the lower end of the millennial scale. So by the time that I was out and trying to get a job and not being able to land a job and all of those things, I was still a little bit younger. So I have, the perspective of the realization that all of us had at the same time, and people who were, 10 to 15 years older than me, who had already been working in the system for however long and seeing how much it wasn't benefiting them, us all having that realization at the same time that this isn't working. And it's not working by design, right? So that's why we're shifting to a more community aspect. And your focus might be like a little bit all over the place because it's difficult to think about these things whenever you are so focused on survival. So that's my advice to you, is like, as you're focusing on survival, as you're freaking out about what's going on and super worried about how you're going to pay for this and do that, look at your community and see how not only you can help other people, but how your community can be there for you and have it be like a give and take that is beneficial. You know what I mean? If you feel bad about taking money, like I said, from the food bank or from the food drive, see if you can volunteer. And then like at the end of the day, whenever there's a bunch of food, because that's what usually happens, the people who volunteer take the food and then they still try to give it away to people. You know what I mean? And that's how we even know this, is because I'll go over to grandma's house or, my aunt's house or whatever, and they have all this food because they were like, yeah, my friend volunteers, and at the end of the day, they have all this food. So please take stuff. It'll just go bad. So that's where I have that perspective. But a lot of people don't really have that perspective because they're just so far removed. They think that things are not for them, so they just completely avoid it. And then they end up missing out on opportunity to build a community and to benefit from community efforts. So that's my advice to you for group 1. I hope that it reached you. And I'm going to move on to group 2 now. Group 2, we have adapt. My instincts keep me adaptable in the face of any obstacle. We have this really cool card with the fox in the front here. I also wrote, our ability to adapt impacts our perspective and opportunities. Solutions will present themselves when you are adaptable. So this is for people who, every time something big happens, especially with everything that's going on, there's a struggle to adapt. There's like this intense fear about what's going to happen. And this is your reminder to see things like see resistance as just an example that we shouldn't keep going that way. And whenever we're seeing a lot of structures kind of like fall apart right now, it's showing us that that's not the path anymore. It's not working for us, because even the people who are pushing to maintain the status quo are being, I don't want to say punished, but in a way it is kind of like that. They're being punished by the universe because they're continuing to meet roadblocks and they're continuing to have karma basically react to what's happening. It looks like they're winning because they're pushing so hard and they're trying to push as much as possible. But I mean, if anyone is a survivor of an abusive relationship, you see that they are the most intensely abusive whenever they feel insecure, whenever they're worried that you might leave. That's what they say about abusive relationships, right? The most dangerous time period of being in an abusive relationship for women is when they're leaving. So that's what we're really seeing, like just globally, worldwide, is this like real like push drive to force people down and to force people to continue to take what is being given to them. And a part of adapting is to not let it freak you out, but instead shift your perspective to something else. This path isn't working. We're going to find a different path to make things work. I have the sun here. You have to focus on healing and manifestation. Focus on that. That might be part of what's making you struggle. You can see on the sideline over here, we have nothingness. That's because that's a reminder of how far we can fall whenever we're not embracing healing. And a lot of people are not healed. That's their problem, right? A lot of people are not healed and they just focus all of that like internal rage and hatred and all that stuff on everybody else. But you're different. You want to heal, but you're in this like weird period where like you feel powerless. So this is your reminder to focus on the healing aspect and positivity and manifesting a future that you want to see for yourself. Things are scary right now, but I keep continuously getting messages that progress is going to happen and that good things are going to happen. And I keep seeing that from other readers and psychics that I've been seeing. We don't know how that's going to play out exactly, but that's just a reminder to continue to manifest as much as possible if you have the energy to do so. We have the Emperor here. So this represents Aries. It also represents kind of like controlling aspect. And I think that's what we're fighting against. We're fighting against not only the control that we're losing, like personally within ourselves, but also this big control aspect that I was just talking about, like this like forceful like drive to try and maintain the status quo despite the evidence that it's no longer working. I have, oh nice, I have 9 of Cups. And so this is about finally, it says wish granted and success. See what I mean about getting those messages? I keep getting messages that good things are coming. And I think that that is directly related to the healing and the harmony that comes with the Sun card. So in order for us to win, I think that we have to continue to embrace the not toxic positivity, but embrace the aspect of just like maintaining the idea that like we're going to have a good future, good things are going to happen, like continue to push that out because we need that as a collective, not just on an individual scale about your own life. You know, we hear a lot of people say they pray for a new car and that God gives it to them because they love them and not because they have generational wealth, right? So we really have to look at that aspect of this and how the collective energy can come together to create a positive outcome. I have the Moon here. This is the second time this week I've gotten this card in a reading that is promoting people to use their intuition and their dream work to manifest a future. And also embrace the sensitivity of yourself, like whatever, like the sensitivity that you have for the world, utilize it, you know what I mean? And use your intuition, because these like things that you're feeling, it's not that you're overreacting or it's not anything like that. It's that you are feeling those shifts and it's okay to embrace the way that you're feeling. And I wouldn't say like if you're feeling doomed, completely fall apart or anything, but more like if you're feeling doomed, that means because we need a shift and we need a change and you need to adapt, right? That's what we're talking about. You have to adapt to what's going on so that you can continue to pursue liberation, not only for yourself, but for other people. I have 4 of Cups here. I think this is what a lot of people get stuck in, is this like disappointment aspect. You know, whenever I'm talking about shifting our perspective to open ourselves up for opportunities, I think a lot of people get annoyed and angry that things aren't going the way they want it to. And so they just like, oh, whatever. And I think that this year in general, we're having to deal with the aspect that the way that we thought that things would be is not how it's happening, right? And a lot of us individually have had to come to terms with that, you know, and in our different ways, you know, individually. Some people are dealing with like serious medical issues that they didn't know they would have whenever they were younger, you know, considering also long COVID, autoimmune diseases, things like that. Whenever you're younger, you don't suffer as much from the side effects of those, even if you had it at that time. But as you grow older and you start to see the way it impacts your life, especially whenever you try to like just continue to push in a direction that's not working for you, the body eventually kicks back and it's like, stop it. You know, anybody who's had like a chronic illness flare from stressing yourself out and pushing too hard knows exactly what I mean. Your body eventually gets to a point where it's just like, no more. And then you have to adapt. Sorry, that car was like being weird. And you have to adapt, because if to not adapt it counteracts your survival, right? You have to. And I think a lot of people don't realize that perspective. I actually was talking to somebody online one day because they were complaining about, you know, being an author and being a writer, and that it's so hard to find time to write and how do people do it. And they were just saying all this stuff about how it's impossible. And I commented about how, or like, how do people find the time to do it? Like, they're basically implying that anybody has time to do it is privileged. And so I kind of commented that I do have a chronic illness and that it's really hard for me to do regular like corporate work or physical labor jobs, things like that, you know, because I've tried to go work. I've tried to do full-time jobs. I've tried to do like part-time and stuff. And I just like continuously get into a position where I get into a flare-up or something happens where the job is taken away from me. Like, I finally got a government job in 2020, which was the start of me getting into my spiritual practice, by the way. I started in like 2019. It was just something I did for fun, just for me though, and just like for my friends before I like really turned it into a practice like a few years later. But in 2020, I finally had this like government job, and me and my husband were super excited because that meant benefits and it meant, you know, good pay and it meant stability. And then COVID happened and I got let go. And then it was like, oh, okay. And that was like pretty much the only time. Any other job I've gotten besides that has been a physical labor position that has an expiration date, because as a chronically ill person, I cannot just go and work my body to the brim every single day. I just can't do that. So, so in that aspect of life not being exactly how we want it to be, you kind of have to adjust and adapt and figure out how to survive. That's what I was talking about. Lost my train of thought for a second. The very last card I have here is Page of Swords, and this is about, Page is kind of like a student, and then Swords is like intellect. So it's not only communication, but also like learning. And so I think a lot of us are going to have to become students in this aspect of how to approach this community building and this community aspect, right? This reading has kind of expanded, so I'm sitting here being like, what did I say? But you get the point and you get what I'm saying here. So for people who picked the Adapt card, you get kind of like the focus of what exactly we're fighting against, this like forceful, abusive force that we're having to deal with. And then also how to counteract that with healing and manifestation. Don't fall into disappointment cycles. You know what I mean? And look for places that are opportunities that move you forward. Don't try to focus so much on like the path of resistance. Like try to just, you know, if you're feeling resistance in a certain way, that might not be the path for you. And even if it might be terrifying to be like, to stop pursuing that, try to look to your community and how you can have that exchange of relief. Maybe you donate a little bit of your time and you get like something out of it, and then you don't have to focus so much on the paycheck, you know? And that might be a way for you to kind of like adapt and survive with the way that things are going to be progressing. So yeah, that's your reading.